My name's Nigel Walker, and I am a photographer by hobby. My mother had her box brownie camera with her, with an Ilford film, as I recall. My father was a seafarer. My mother wanted a photograph of him with her before he went back to sea. So I was given the box brownie, told how to take a photograph of it, and shown how to wind the film on, which fascinated me because it had a little round red piece of plastic, and you could see the arrows and the numbers appear. So that was the first time I took a photograph. I can get in at an angle which looks meaningful. That could be better in black and white. So whenever there's an opening of an exhibition, first day or whatever, I do like to be present, not because I'm there to show off particularly. I'm not really interested in that. And I don't take too much notice of people who come and say, oh, this is really nice, because, you know, they may feel they have to do that. I'd much rather people just looked and, you know, asked a question if they had one.
This is the same?
No.
No, that's
two.
Different.
This is the white one.
Oh, right.
That's a red one.
Oh, right.
But they're not aligned like that. You couldn't see them like that.
Yeah.
You just looked. So I've made it look like that.
Artistic
So
I really like that. Where were you when you took that photograph? I'm there for that reason. I think it's quite important. I do get a sense of what people are looking at as well, which can influence you in terms of perhaps a future showing. A man called Robert Adams, American photographer, he says that a good photograph has three elements in it. One is geography. Where is this photograph taken? Could be a landscape, could be a room, could be a cardboard box, doesn't really matter. But the geography will say something about the photograph. Second thing, autobiography. As a photographer, what are you adding to that? Why are you taking the picture? Are you saying something about yourself? And then the third thing is metaphor, a more meaningful thing. Something with a bit more meat to it than just going out and snapping a photograph. And that started to affect the way that I took photographs, because I would consider that before I went out. So I'd start to visualize what it was going to look like before I took it. Off you go.
Right. Just to clarify, so we're going down through Victoria Square.
57,000 photographs are taken every second these days. Almost all of them on phones. Only 7% of those photographs taken on DSLRs or the equivalent. You know, trillions per year. How many of those trillion are worth looking at? Everyone does think they're a photographer. And if people don't know how to take a photograph, if people don't understand the photograph, don't understand the complexity of it, then it's quite legitimate that they might wonder how it's been done. I think it's quite legitimate that a photographer can tell them.
One thing in common which most of us haven't, they may be shooting 2-3 weddings a day,
Yes.
and the rest of the time is they're just playing around, like videos for us to take those people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I'm still trying to think. I was mainly fixated on the idea of cars or maybe people just moving, but yeah, I think it's a bit too bright for that right now.
It can be.
And then I went to Dungeness and I came home with, for me, some amazing photographs. So then after that, nothing again, because I've been so busy.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think it's kind of a slow it down, stop trying to do everything.
I mean, I took photographs for many, many years, and they were not impressive photographs at all.
Yeah.
They were photographs of holidays, they were photographs of family, you know, kids growing up, all that sort of thing that everyone does. Occasionally I'd try and do something a bit arty, and really for me it was only after I retired and started to read a lot more widely, listen to a lot more photographers talking about their work.
I don't have time.
You know, your time comes. If all you're doing now is a hobby that you're practicing, then in a few years when life changes and you have less pressures on you for whatever reason, then all of that practice will come in good for
Yeah,
you.
that's it. I've always kind of been like, oh, well, I need to do it now. I need to do it now. I don't need to do anything.
No, you don't.
Reverend Judy continues, we get so hung up about how we should pray, the correct way. I suspect for Simon Mary, the prayer is often the music that she plays, and for others, the words they write, or the pictures they paint, or even the use of their imagination, as in Ignatian spirituality. It is all prayer.
The idea that music can be everything from Mozart and Beethoven to, Leonard Cohen and the Spice Girls. I just find that fascinating, that you've got this huge range, and that when people set out to write something, they're already deciding on the form that they're going to use. They say, I'm going to be a poet, I'm going to be a novelist, I'm going to be a journalist. This is the style I'm going to use to get my message across. And at the same time, you have musicians doing the same. And I don't think it's that dissimilar for photographers in a way. So I was very much influenced by growing up in Liverpool and what was happening around me then. And that still echoes in my mind sometimes when I'm thinking about how I'm going to frame something, how I'm going to put together a series of pictures for something, perhaps. '90s and into the early 2000s, I was working quite often in London, and that gave me access to a lot more photography shows, people whose work would not have crossed my path necessarily. And then, of course, the internet, and I was quite an early adapter of the internet, and I'd be able to search things out. There wasn't always a lot on there to begin with. Now, you can't move without coming across photography. That started to just prompt those questions, that idea of collaboration. The internet makes this much easier to do. How photographers work together and across boundaries. Sent you a copy of the photographs and said, is there some music we could use? And you said...
I said, I'll write you something. Fool, idiot. No. I'm glad I did, because, this is one of the things where, you talked about collaboration.
And I think that's the interesting thing for me. And in the past, I've worked with 7 or 8 other photographers on a theme, and we don't know each other.
This is where I think kind of looking at something from different artistic perspectives, looking at the same experience, and it is a common experience. And there's this kind of consensus about kind of what people are going through post-COVID, post-lockdown. It's still there in the air, and you're taking photos of showing, one of the things I've loved about these photos is that there is that dissonance in the photos. You see humans, but then there's this kind of street experience where they're, it's kind of the terror of, literally, I think, the kind of emotional fear of knowing where your next bit of money is coming from to do this. So what I did was I recorded some sounds around the city and just almost kind of, how can I say, distorted them in a way, just overlaid them, had them delayed, so there's no kind of, you can hear there are human presences and industrial presences, there's kind of cars and things like that, but they're kind of nebulous and a bit vague. And that's what I wanted. I thought, okay, you can, where is the human voice in this? And it was something that I was kind of experiencing as well.
Well, I was delighted when I heard it, because obviously I didn't know what you were going to do. No. You'd said to me you were going to record some sounds. And the original thing that made me think about this was the idea of truth and what is truth. And of course, truth is really anything anybody wants to tell you, because someone's truth is different to another person's truth. And I think this is similar. I'm trying to reflect challenges through this dissonance that I saw on the streets. And I think your soundscape does that.
I suppose I'm trying to think of a correlation between what I would do in the studio with instruments and what I would do with digital recorders when I go out and record sound sources. I think I'm doing the same as you with my sound recording things. I'm waiting for the opportunity. But if I'm in the studio composing with instruments, it's more like painting. For me, the idea of you just standing there and watching and waiting, that is a performance. You're alert for that moment that you need to capture.
Yeah.
The first photographs were taken in the 1820s, and by the 1850s, it was already used as an art medium, as an art form. However, because it was so new, it was such a new technique, people were from the very beginning quite skeptical about it. They were quite reluctant to associate it with art, because, you know, photography from the beginning was invented to capture reality.
I'm wondering what makes a picture more valuable historically, whether it's the context of the picture in the terms of what it portrays, or whether it's the photographer and the time in which it lies.
People started to understand that the photographic technique had some properties that could be exploited to create this new, exciting, amazing art form. And this coincided with the larger, I think this was encouraged actually by the larger context and by aestheticism, which was an artistic movement that started in the late 1860s. And aestheticism basically said that art has to be created for art's sake. So it doesn't have to serve a secondary purpose. Art has to be created for itself. And this kind of set the scene for photographers to explore the camera itself and what the camera can do to create art.
I just wondered whether there were just different things that we recognise differently as part of the history of photography, or whether it's the strength of an individual photographer's vision or the strength of a particular picture that would mark something as historically important photographically.
Contemporary art is so weird, and it's so it has gone to such extremes, you know, in terms of performance art and object-based art, that I think galleries may play an important role as well. But throughout history, I think context was really, really important. However, I think that the driving force is always the photographer's vision. So I think, you know, without a person who presses the button and actually takes that shot, there wouldn't be a photograph.
I don't think I'm going to get a lot of shots just here just now, so I'm going to walk a bit further on and see what's around the corner. I have no plan at all. This is slow photography at its best. Separate it from its background a bit. I'm shooting with just the sky behind it, and I'm far too near with that lens, so I'm coming back from it a bit. We'll see if this does it any better. Well, it starts really before I look through the camera. It starts when I see something and think that might be interesting to photograph. And then I have a little think about what I'm going to do with it. And then I look at the camera and I try and decide what I need to do with the camera to set that up properly. So do I need to change my ISO? Do I need to change the depth of field on it? Do I want to shoot it quicker or more slowly? All those things sort of come into play then. And if I can put it on bulb, which means that if I hold that down, that's a 5-second shot, about 6 seconds. We'll try it on about 10. I mean, I enjoy it, you see. This is the thing. When you are retired and you have a hobby like photography, you can do it in several ways. One of the ways that I do it is I try and learn something new each time I set out on a project. So my projects will all be different. They may have some common themes around them, which could be social or could be documentary, but that's what I enjoy doing.
it's like with our thought processes, we don't finish one thought before going on to a next one. You know, it's all over the place, and we're being fed all the time. So whether Nigel's taking photographs of Hull, or whether he's doing like a Dutch still life of an apple, or the landscape, close up of trees. And of course, being a photographer, they're not just trees, they're portraits. You know, they're portraits of trees, or zooming in and little insects on flowers, and cinched in waists. You know, the color, it's the scale, it's the immersive quality of throwing his eye in and then allowing us to see it as he did. What you're doing as an artist, your works will not get lost in the history of time if you carry on and persist and keep changing and updating your message. And by message, I mean story. So I remember, Nigel, having a look at your Red Dress series. Yeah. And so that was a series. It was theatre on a page. What's going to happen next to this garment, and where's it going to be, and who's had it, who's worn it, almost making the red dress like an actor on the stage. Photography as a type of technological art, reproducing images is the same as we're creating a picture or representation, but it's timeless. And I think time and timeliness makes for a crucial difference between photography and the more what we consider the higher or fine art. But photography's ability to represent the world with absolute accuracy challenges the painter's eye, really, and challenges what a traditional claim to truth is.